Thanks everybody for being here. I am happy to call our meeting to order, and we'll dispense with the reading of the minutes unless there are any additions, deletions, or corrections. Are there any? Seeing none, we'll assume they are accurate and approved as presented. Let's go right to the diversity and inclusion report. Tom, do you want to introduce that or anything?
Absolutely.
Welcome, Cindy.
So I'd like to, we're going to do two reports today. I think Bishop at our last executive committee meeting recommended we also do an MWB report, which I thought was a great idea, because we have a lot of great things to report on. So Cindy's been doing a great job with diversity, equity, inclusion in the building. She's going to talk to you about all of the different efforts that we've been engaged in and some of the tangible results, especially in recruitment. And then Nick's going to talk to us about MWBE and again, some of the success we've had there. And I think, as we might have mentioned before, we're actually nominated for a statewide award. So they've been doing some really, really good work. So with that, Cindy, go ahead.
And welcome, Cindy.
Everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon to everyone on the virtual. And I would just like to take this opportunity to thank everyone that we have, to me, have had a very successful year this year in our diversity, equity, and inclusion program. I'm very excited about the things that we have been doing and our goals. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about our accomplishments. I know I have a time limit. I can't tell everything we've been doing, so I want to really speak to some high points that we have been doing. Okay, so with our, I just want to talk about our strategic pillars for a short moment. We have developed this at the foundation of our office. So this is really what we strive and we build upon: patient experience, workforce development, community engagement, and organizational cultural proficiency. So this is the foundation of our program. Everything that we do, we build it and make sure that we're meeting the business strategic goals and it matches ECMC goals. So we built upon this. So our vision, I felt, is very important in reaching our goals for this year, 2021, that we needed a vision. And that was to integrate diversity, equity, and inclusion into the work we do every day here at ECMC. I'm very proud that some of the achievements that we have accomplished this year, and I can just say one, of people just coming to our office and they have questions, or if they think about any issues with LGBTQ, any concerns, they come to our office. So it's very important to us that everything that our goals that we achieve for this year, it comes back to diversity, equity, and inclusion, not only with the employees, but with the patients, with our vendors, and with our community. Our community hiring stats, as I have done in the past, we like to talk about them. And again, these numbers are year to date. Last year with the pandemic was the 525, but this year 495 as today in our new hires. What we're excited about, and we continue on the effort of hiring from the 14215 community. So we strive for that. We're very proud of that. It represents the community in which we serve and the community that we're in. So our accomplishments. Comprehensive cultural awareness. It was very important for us this year for us to talk about the communication, and we intentionally strive to talk about the awareness of different cultures in this hospital. We had a targeted effort. We had intentional programming. We implemented cultural awareness program with a comprehensive strategy. We expanded our impact through educational events and programs to celebrate and recognize diverse cultures. So every month, you will see as you walk into our hospital, we have banners, and we try to represent every culture that we can here at our hospital. We have the spirituality and healthcare, which I'll go into a little bit later. Our office has taken on the EEOC, so we do our annual reporting. Translation services and our voice rollout, we collaborated with the patient experience. Natalie Sleep, who's our diversity, equity, and inclusion program coordinator, she took that on as the project lead to get the voice out to all the departments as part of our diverse foreign language services. And community relations engagement, I, in our office, went to 2 important events this year. We attended the Gospel Fest. We gave out information on our careers and services that's offered here at ECMC. We also invited the pop-up vaccine clinic to attend at the Martin Luther King Park. And also we went to the WUFO Expo. There was vendors there, and actually Nick, who will be presenting right after me, MWBE was there. And we, again, gave services, information about the services that ECMC offered, as well as our career path. Other accomplishments that we have achieved this year is our Alliance and Minority Physicians. So we collaborated with Dr. Dory Marshall and the physician collaboration with UB for the Black Leadership Committee. ECMC was a sponsor for their graduation. We're very proud of that, and that is an effort that we continue to expand on. Our diverse vendor networking fair, I'm not gonna talk about that too much. It was a collaboration that we did with MWBE. It was our first annual collaboration. We had vendors there, minority vendors from the community. And I wanted to just show at that time with the approval of our boss, we handed out t-shirts to all employees. And this is our diversity, equity, and inclusion, which states that we celebrate diversity as well as embrace differences. And it speaks to our campaign of what diversity matter, inclusion matters, equity matters, social justice matter, you matter. And this has been really a hot ticket here at ECMC. Employees,
yeah, how do we get one?
I will have one for you. Matter of fact, I will go up and grab them. This is, I mean, it's just so nice to walk in the morning, and I'm in the Tim Hortons line or somewhere, and to see an employee walk in with this t-shirt. And we're very proud of this. This is something that people can wear out in the community. We want to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, not only in the hospital, but in our community. Our patients see it. And they know that we are we're all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I will make sure everyone gets the t-shirt. Also, I wanted to just say that this year we put out, we call the Buzz. And this is our first annual newsletter that we did. It talks about our accomplishments that we have achieved the first part of the year. And this is something that we want to do semi-annually. This can also be, some of the information is on our intranet. We have a diversity, equity, and inclusion intranet. And we've tried to update that with information for our employees as well as our internet. So there's information on there. So we had our first annual. This was a big year for us. I'm very excited about it. We also present at the new hire orientation. That was something that I wanted our new hires to know, that ECMC has a diversity, equity, and inclusion, what our goals are, what we're doing, what our services is to provide. Some of the feedback that we have received from new hires is that we chose, one of the reasons that we chose ECMC, that's one, is that they have a diversity, equity, and inclusion program. So that's something to be very proud of. This year in June, we presented, myself, Natalie, along with Karen Zemansky and Mary, we were selected to present at Americans Essential Hospital. We talked about the importance of commitment to the LGBTQ community. And this is something that we achieved as top performer back in 2020. And we gave hospitals across the nation advice on how to pursue this destination and make more inclusive environment for our LGBTQ patients. Employee resource groups. We kicked this off in September, actually at our MWBE Diversity. And the Employees Resource Group is a new program that we're starting here at ECMC. Studies show that Employee Resource Group helps improve the employee engagement and quality for their work. So we will have co-chairs for leaders, and this is employee-led groups. We have the Black and African American Network. We have the LGBTQ+, Hispanic, evening and night shift network. One of the things that diversity, equity, and inclusion is not only for the day shift, it's for evening shift. And a lot of feedback that we have received that we want something to give to the employees during the night shift. So we're gonna have a group that's designated from the evening shift that will help assist us in the programming and any events that we can provide to the network. We're gonna have a professional women's network, young professionals network, and veterans network. So I just wanted to share right quickly. I know I have a lot of things I'm sharing, but I just wanted to share this. These are some of the applications that we have received from our employees to join our employee resource groups. And I just wanted to read one thing that we have received from an employee. We asked, please briefly explain why you are interested in the employee resource group and what you wish to contribute. And one of the employees wrote, I'd like to be able to give back and support my fellow coworkers in ways that increase a positive experience here at ECMC and in our daily lives. I want to be able to help and assist each other to know that we are not alone during difficult times and celebrate successes along the way. It is important for me to give back to the community and help build a strong sense of belonging and staff. So I just wanted to share with you that our employees are very excited about being part of this. And next year, when I contribute, hopefully we'll have some great successes from that. Our employee resource group logo, thanks to Peter and the marketing team, this is one of our new logos for the ECMC employee resource group. So as communication goes out, that is the logo that will be going out as well. Our training initiatives for 2021, we continue with the CCHL training, which includes all of our new hire employees and reorientation for current employees. This is home training. We are continuing that. So myself, Erin and Natalie, we have continued the training for that. We're getting great feedback. We are including things like unconscious bias, the privilege, what you went through. And recently the training department, non-clinical, is under the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. We just hired a training manager. So we looking to take training to a new level, have virtual training classes, and really take Diversity University to the new level as well. Our spirituality and healthcare series, this is something that came out of the focus groups. Some of the clinical nurses were talking about how we here at ECMC have a lot of patients that come from different backgrounds, different religions. And it used to be a session where expert would come in and talk about the health spirituality based upon their culture. So we identify top religious patient populations seen here. And we do monthly educational sessions offered in person and virtually. So we do tape these sessions. We have expert speakers from the network of religious communities and ECMC to cover them. We do different religious topics, as you can see. We have done various topics, and this is something we want to continue on next year. We had a particular topic with the Jewish faith, and they spoke to things like the food. They spoke to patient care. They spoke to afterlife, what happens at the end of life. So those are different things that we want to continue, again, educating our employees, bringing awareness to the culture. Some other awareness initiatives we have done, we celebrate Black History, Juneteenth, which is a federal holiday this year. So we had something And we had our lovely board member, the women board members, to do a women's empowerment session, which was awesome, to learn about the career growth. We had our first annual Pride Walk here on campus. The news was here, they interviewed us. It was an awesome event. We had several hundred of employees to march around the campus in regards to the LGBTQ. And also there's a picture of our diversity summer festival. Okay, so this is the end. I just like to leave everyone with a quote. Diversity is the one true thing we all have in common. Celebrate it every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was great.
Questions for Cindy before we move forward?
I just have a quick question. Cindy, it's great. This is Christian Johnson.
Hi, Christian.
Hi. Cindy, thank you so much. And it's great to see such a robust DEI program within the hospital. And I see a lot of your activities, you know, and the staff is included. But is there anything that we do to show the community that we serve all of these great programs that this hospital is involved in? Because I think it's important to show that their hospital is really and truly inclusive. So is there, I mean, are like the walk, the Pride Walk, is that something that the community is able to participate in, or is it really internal?
So this year, with this being our first time doing it, it was an employee, but you know, that's something maybe that we can do it. We really did we wanted to address that because of the pandemic. The Pride Walk was canceled in Buffalo. So we wanted to make sure we celebrate. But me being in the community relations, I try to get out into the community as much as I can to talk about our diversity, equity, and inclusion. I sit on several councils and any activities that's going on that I'm invited to, I try to get out and then really promote the program that's happening here at the hospital.
Great, thank you.
Cindy, two technical questions for you, and I should know this. What are the geographic boundaries of 14215?
John, you know what? I don't know the answer to that, but I can get that information and find out for you.
Great.
Yeah.
Bishop, you have any idea?
I don't know.
It's a huge zip code. It's a huge zip code. It's the biggest in
It is.
most of the east side.
Well, I understand that, but what are the streets that are found in?
Yeah, I don't know the exact streets.
I don't know that.
I can tell you, it goes from Delavan Avenue.
Adrian,
I think it's roughly Worley, includes Kensington, East Amherst, all the way down to East Ferry.
It extends all the way to the University District as well, all the way up into East until it turns into Amherst. So it's all the way down Main Street, all the way to Delavan, back up towards Kensington, up until you get to Worley Drive, and then back towards Eggert.
Great, thank you. That's helpful. We should at least know that. Mm-hmm. And see, what are the numbers in terms of, if we were to look at our overall census or head count, particularly on the staff level, what percentage are we considered to be minority? Well, what percentage are considered to be minority? Do we know that one?
Yep. Joe, do you want to address that?
I think it depends what you're talking about, John. It's we hire at incoming 70-30 diverse, and then management flips over, and we talked about that a little bit on the service side of the house, to around 37 other way. So that's where we set. So if you globalize it, it's probably in the neighborhood of maybe 60-40.
60-40?
Oh.
Okay. And is that across all job classifications? If you were to take the entire universe?
Roughly, but we've had 11% turnover this year, so that you can't, don't quote me on it.
I'm going to quote you on it.
Thank you. That's why.
We can get that information.
Yeah,
I can get it real time for you.
No, and it's, as I say, it's something that we ought to have easily at our disposal. And so the degree to which we hire within those job classifications, those metrics still apply in those same numbers? Is that fair?
No, I would say one of the issues we have are the tested positions for civil service, which is an issue we've been continually bringing up with the legislature and civil service. When we tried to address our own civil service, which we're going to get to again, Bishop. Yeah, in those areas we tend to struggle. The civil service area.
So that the numbers would be, it would be accurate to say that the numbers are different from a diversity perspective relative to, say, physicians versus technicians versus nurses versus plant ops.
Yes.
Yes, it is. And I do the EEOC reporting, so we do have the breakdowns of the numbers that we do every year that we report statewide that breaks it down into professionally and all the different titles of the job. So we do have that.
Need to refresh it. It's probably about 3 or 4 months old.
But of any public entity in Erie County, we're doing better than anybody by far.
Yes.
Without question.
How do we know that? I agree with you, but how do we know that?
Well, I know if you're talking about Erie County, their numbers are, I mean, first of all, the city only makes up a small part of that. So we know that they're about 8%. You know, when you talk about, now the city might be a little different because there's been a lot of minority hiring, but that's more, especially in the upper level areas. They've done, the mayor's done a good job there. But when you talk about UB, when you talk about the school district, okay, which is 80% majority, and Black and brown make up around 15%. Okay, so when you, I know in most of the like I said, public entities, by far we're better than any of them, and that includes our MWBE goals.
Yeah, and I would also say in healthcare, right, too. So
yeah, and right, even within healthcare, if you talk about the Catholics or Collider, but MWBE, you know, with if we take the Board of Education, they're less than 1% MBE out of the $200 million. I say that
in terms of their vendors and
yes, in terms of their spend, which is $200 million, less than 1%.
And credit to the Bishop and Sharon. I mean, when we started this years ago, when we really started fighting and making an effort, and also Tom.
I think it's Tom. I mean, Tom had to buy into it.
That's what I'm saying. Tom had to buy into it, but you see where we can go with this.
Well, and to Sharon's credit, you know, office reporting directly to me, Sharon was like, you need to do that to show the organization. And Bishop, I think the comment I've used many, many times that you said you have to be intentional. Right. And I've used it in statewide and in nationwide boards, and people are like, right, they're going to be intentional about it. And we, from a middle management standpoint, it's been important to be intentional. And I know Joe's been directly involved in intervening in some search processes for middle management to say, you got to give people a shot because, people hire people they may know, right, or be more familiar with. And in those instances, we actually ended up, people that got introduced to the process ended up getting hired. So, you have to be intentional, and it's, you have to make sure you're involved in the hiring process to make sure we're watching what's going on. So.
And it's also important to have our own civil service. Once we can get that accomplished, yes, I think you will see your numbers go up. And I mean, that's not a new wish, but it's a wish that should be accomplished at some point.
Yeah, I think COVID kind of put it back burner. It's not fire that discussion up again. In fact, I think more now than ever, because in addition to it not testing what people do, right? That's number one. It disadvantages folks with different educational backgrounds. Right. So it's
if Roswell can have theirs, we can have ours.
Right. Exactly.
We just have to get the right people in Albany to talk about it.
So to Bishop Badger's point, Cindy and Joe, if we can, at least on a regular basis, monthly, if not quarterly, do a deeper dive just on the numbers.
Okay.
You know, and let's establish the baseline of where we are through at least the major job classifications, and establish what our DEI numbers are, and then establish some goals to either improve them or maintain them, so that we're not playing from behind. That I think would be helpful.
Okay.
Can we do that?
Yes.
Yeah. And then we can show progress too from previous years. We'll have to look at that also.
I know miracles happen. We have Joe here live, so
I know.
we can probably do anything. Hi, Joe.
I think one other thing, I remember when Cindy started, you know, it was just, here's this job title and kind of figure it out type of thing. And I think she's become an expert.
And it's become a department, not just a person, right?
Yeah.
She built that.
Yes.
And that's my point. So if we can get to that degree, put the metrics together and keep them up to date so that they're accurate in real time, I think that just accrues to our benefit and really demonstrates and solidifies your comments about where we stand, particularly as it relates to the other organizations in the community that we sometimes are compared to.
And UB is another one that's horrible in their diversity.
Don't get me started.
Yeah. So, you know.
Anyway.
All right. So thank you, Cindy.
Cindy, great job.
Thank you so much.
Joe,
thank you, everyone, and have a happy Thanksgiving. I just wanted to say that we did start talking about dashboards. Adrian, who's part of our task force, has been working with that to look at our numbers. I felt it was very important to talk about where we started from and where we are. So we have been working on that. So that is something that we can achieve too.
To get back to the numbers, so that would be great.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a happy. What size shirt do you wear? You can have this one. I have shirts. We have shirts.
Do you have any idea how many years John is now going to give me comments about the fact that
Truth be told,
if
don't you dare take
that. Let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Make sure you declare that on your financial position.
Yeah, right.
So, and let the record show that amongst all of you very sophisticated people, the only guy that came up with the answer to the 14215 was Adrian.
So we have Nick and Diane who are going to talk about MWBE, and Nick is our analyst in MWBE, and Diane is head of materials management here at ECMC, and not only has done a great job with this, but has done an unbelievable job, continues to do a great job making sure we have all the PPE we need, even in the midst of things like major fires, but also driving cost reductions for us in the building, which is obviously more important. Less money we can spend on our supplies, and more we can spend on hiring new people.
Every dollar counts. So thank you first for inviting us to come. And we had a subcommittee meeting last week with Bishop Badger and Mr. Chapin and Dr. Grimm and Andy and John. And we have turned the presentation into data. So data tells the story. So I am Vice President of Materials Management. And so, you know, I live kind of in the world of data. So Nick is going to present the numbers. Nick is our MWBE SDVOB analyst, and he has done an amazing job in the less than 2 years that he has been here. But 2 years ago, I think the biggest change that we made is to bring that department actually into our world of procurement. So we have an office. We don't see the light. I have a vitamin D light to give me some light during the day. But so we have our procurement buyers down there. We have our procurement team. We have our value analysis program down there that talks about how we go and look for savings and negotiate contracts. We work very closely with legal. And we felt it was very important that the MWBE world comes into the world where we're talking to the vendors and we're talking amongst ourselves every single day. So the huddle system that everyone is aware of, we do tier 2 huddle every single day at 7:30, and it is the entire team. So they all hear what we're all talking about, what contracts are coming up, who wants what, but it's not just in that huddle. It's 8, 9, 10 hours, whatever we're there, during the day, and people are just talking. And so I'm a true believer in communication and openness and just say it as it is. So I am so thankful that we have been here the majority of the time during the pandemic and not at our homes, because I think that's where we learn and we feed off of each other. So Nick has been able to take that information, reach out to the community, which he's going to show you the data on what he's done, but we have truly embedded with ESD, with the department at Buff State, E for All, E Forever, the city of Buffalo, and learn from each other how we can diversify more from the construction and into all these other areas to embrace MWBE. And I am honored and pleased that in December, the middle of December, no less, go to Albany to accept an award for an MWBE Champion Award for ECMC. So we are thrilled for that in less than 2 years. So I will let you present the data that you do so well every day.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I will try to make this painless with being data and being an analyst, right? For you. So MWBE utilization. So we'll talk about the numbers first, and then we're going to do a little bit of a dive into it to what this extrapolates to, because the first slide is just percentage based, right? So ESD is the MWBE body for New York State. They do operate, of course, their fiscal year on a different time cycle. So they actually start their fiscal years in April and it ends in March. So for instance, in April through June was the first quarter. We submitted our numbers at a 34.75%. And our most recent utilization actually jumped up to a 52.43%. Now that is a little bit of an outlier, I will say. Then there's a couple of root causes to that. One of which is actually, as Diane alluded to, with some partnerships that we have built. We actually have a partnership with SPDC at Upstate to assist on individuals who are trying to become New York State certified for the MWBE program. It's a complicated process. And kind of when we kind of looked at it, we stepped back and try to identify who's the right people in the room, right? Who are the subject matter experts that actually can assist individuals on navigating these waters, whether it's through the legal procedures, whether it's through the documentation, the financials, whatever that may be. With that said, we actually did have a company that did receive their certification in that quarter, who was used on the premise. So and we also did have some higher than anticipated utilization through some construction projects that are kind of going out through the campus. And that's kind of due to the cyclical nature of what the project is with the outside of the windows replacement.
Let me back up for just a second. So when you talk about MBE, you're talking about singular companies that provide particular products or overall spend?
So the percentage is an aggregate of the utilization, whether it's for goods or services through the MWBEs from New York State. And then it's a derivative of what the expenditures are that are applicable towards the goals. So
the value is in the spend.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. And we'll extrapolate that in the next slide for when the dollars and cents per se are. So comparatively speaking, with those two quarters halfway through the year, we actually are at 42.86% so far. In 2020, we are at 34.73, and then in 2019, we are at 30.44. With that said, the New York State goal is 30%. So again, continuously achieving to strive to be above that line. Make sure, as Diana mentioned, is less construction based with our processes. Everything's becoming more intentional. Everything's hardwired into what we're doing, and we're seeing more diverse spend as a result too. So to kind of extrapolate some of the numbers here. So again, April through September 2021, total utilization between the M and the WBEs was $6.21 million halfway through the year. Expenditures, which is the denominator of the equation driving that percentage, is $14.78 million. So as you can start to see a little bit, there is a decrease if you were to normalize that for what is anticipated for the whole fiscal year. A lot of the root cause for what's behind that one is it's kind of directly correlated to the decrease in capital projects, construction, things going on the campus, so far as that's kind of concerned. Interestingly enough, actually MBE utilization is holding approximately pretty much so from 2019 through that fiscal year, $9.25 million, pretty much held the following year. And then even with the decrease of what we're seeing so far is what's going on, the actual MBE utilization is still trending at about $8.2 million, give or take. It's more being on the WBE side percentage of that. But year over year, as you can see from 19, 20 to 21, Again, the MBE percentage has actually been increasing year over year so far as that's concerned. So, and again, what we're also seeing is we kind of go through our procurements, and as Diane alluded to, where we're at tier 2, we're all embedded, we're all talking, we're actively engaged in those conversations. One of the outcomes that's also been is as we review our competitive bidding documents, we actually review to see anything that we actually can go under Article 15A, the rules and promulgations under that one for MWBE discretionary authority. So that actually does allow ECMC as a public benefit corporation to utilize a single contract outside of construction, essentially, where we actually can award a prime through reasonableness of price review and things like that, actually a $500,000 contract annualized if necessary over the year. So 500K over 5 years, 800K per year type thing. The great thing about that and why we do that review before we do competitive bidding, because that's actually dollar for dollar 100% utilization that ECMC then sees on those equations. And we have seen procurements actually happen in new avenues that we haven't had before with MWBEs that have actually gone through that process as a result of it too, that we're seeing. So it's great outcomes from that. Diving into the regional perspective for our current fiscal year, year to date, Western New York is actually receiving 85.86%. So bulk majority is in Western New York at $5.3 million, $4.9 million actually of that 5.3 is actually located in the city of Buffalo, so far as that's concerned. So again, more dollars going into the Buffalo city.
What's it outside of construction?
The percentage of it outside of construction?
Yes.
I would have to review that one for you to get that statistic, but I could definitely circle back.
And this is all construction related?
No, so this is our total.
That's my question, sir.
So this is encompassing, this would be construction, this would be IT goods and services, this would be any utilization that's occurring. So for instance, WUFO, for that organization, they're a local MBE organization that we have discretionary purchases dollars that occur through. So anything that's goods or service based, including construction, not including construction. We have janitorial services that are actually encompassed with this. So it's a wide brace. And what we continuously try to look for, which, so going back a couple of slides with the peaks and valleys, right? The more we're going to see, the more that we are less dependent upon construction to achieve our utilization, the more stable the process is going to become on it. So therefore, you don't have the cyclical natures, you know, so if you have outside development, right, you're going to see a lull in the payments list and the utilization as well if they're not able to do the winter projects and things of that nature. So the more that we move into reviewing our purchases, reviewing RFPs, reviewing all these other avenues for MWBE opportunities, the more stable the process is becoming as a result. Any other questions? So, all right. So in New York State, that would include areas like Monroe County, Rochester, things of that nature. That would be $856,000, and a very small portion is actually going outside of New York State as of this moment. So now we kind of want to.
Does the state require us to look first within New York State?
So the state does not require that actually. So we do have, when we review for opportunities, and we'll talk about this with Buffalo Purchasing Initiative a little bit. The Buffalo Purchasing Initiative is actually an additional kind of level that we go to on top of the New York State requirement. So the Buffalo Purchasing Initiative is actually 14 of the largest employers in Western New York. So you would have ECMC, Roswell, UB, Buff State, are in that one. You have the Catholics, Kaleida Health are in that one. Then you have private companies such as Move, Independent Health, Highmark Health, so on and so forth that are encompassing these ones. And the goal of that one is actually to look at MBE certification within the 8 counties of Western New York. The best way to describe the 8 counties is you're essentially taking Niagara, you're going into Erie County, Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, Allegheny, Wyoming, Orleans. So you kind of picture that side of the state going pretty much almost to the line where you get into Monroe County down south type thing. So that's what they're looking at, but it's only MBEs. They don't necessarily actually have to be New York State certified with that one, right? And then on top of it, they only actually look at prime spend. So prime being first tier spend. So ECMC directly pays some company, right? New York State will actually look at tiers outside of prime. So BPI is kind of a whole different layer on top of all these programs. So when we're looking at purchases, sometimes we actually can have it be where it's a New York State certified MBE, whom also actually is located in Buffalo. So we're meeting multiple initiatives at the same time with all these programs. So from a New York State MBE program, kind of the level set for those that aren't familiar with this one as much, with the Buffalo Purchasing Initiative. So again, subcontractor utilization is permitted for New York State. So that would include if a company, we pay them, they pay you down, trickle down tier economics. So far as that's concerned, all that utilization is counted. Buffalo Purchasing Initiative, it's only that first tier. New York State certification is required by New York State to count towards their certification. Buffalo Purchasing Initiative, it does not, but we do have a large number of those entities that are New York State certified. Businesses, again, have to be located within Western New York for BPI. New York State will take, we have utilization that could occur down in wherever state and basically inside the continental as long as New York State certifies them through ESD. The discretionary limit, and I will use the term discretionary a little bit loosely, but it's the easiest way for people to normally look at this one. Under the rules and promulgations under 15A, which is the MWB article that everything kind of encompasses, again, we are allowed that $500,000 procurement limit with the New York State certified MWBEs. With BPI, due to our normal competitive bidding process that kicks in at $20,000, unless it's when like an MWBE type thing, or if it goes through GPO, things of that nature, it's actually $20,000 with a limit with the vendor at that point. So again, we're a little bit more restricted with the Buffalo Purchasing Initiative, but we try to align all these different kind of priorities and really look at those dollars within Western New York. So with all that said, here's actually where we stand at this point. So with everything that we're doing at BPI, I can report at this point that we will be looking actually at for the first time ever ECMC spending over $1 million in 2021. Historically speaking, in 2020, we're at $672,000. In 2019, we were pretty much half of that at $505,000. So fairly quickly, we've actually looked at everything that we're doing, tried to encompassing again more of those dollars within Western New York so far as that's concerned.
Similar question about the our hiring. What's our total spend
for all of our spend?
So what percentage of this is what percentage is this of our total spend?
Total supply spend. Do you have that?
I could. So the way the state kind of looks at it, so we have a goal plan that we submit.
And how do we look at it?
So the state automatically, they have exclusions, exemptions. So certain things off the top, the state will exclude or exempt it for us, right? So like wages, salaries, benefits, you can't really have the goals in that one so far as concerned. That's all off the top line of it. I'd have to pull up the number on the most recent ones. Medical supplies and exclusions are actually is it actually an exclusion from ESD so far as that's concerned. And some of it kind of goes into subcontracting opportunities. The state does have a requirement that utilization should occur in purpose with the, like, meaning it's kind of like intentful, right?
So what's the total spend that the percentage is based off?
So the percentage is based off of the applicable amount, the dollars that the goals would apply to. So everything, so after the items. So 52% of the, so like the last one, I remember the utilization report, the expenditures were approximately about $8 million, give or take, 8 to 6. And that's pretty much where we've been holding now since fall of 2020, is we're pretty much at that, the expenditures, the denominator would be about $6 to $8 million, give or take.
We'll go back to that one chart real quick. Keep going. So the expenditures would be 14.
Yeah, so the 2 quarters of 9, yeah, so 6 and 8. Give or take, I know statistically. Yeah. Is that 14.7 previous? So if you normalize that 30 million, so the reduction in theory would be about $10 million. Again, direct cause of the capital projects. A large portion of the actual expenditure dropped from the previous fiscal year from the 55 to the 41. A lot of that actually was a derivative of the Department of Health grant that ECMC received. So they actually, that money was removed from the denominator side of the equation because they actually captured ECMC's utilization, quote unquote, as part of that grant.
Yeah. The BPI 1 million is a separate program that we kind of track separately that is meant to really engage the community member organizations who might not otherwise be able to qualify for some of the bigger spends. Insurance qualifications are too high, or they just don't have the bandwidth to be able to do a large project. And so that's why that program is kind of in addition to, and it's a smaller spend because we're growing it, but we're the top performer.
Correct? Yeah, so in 2019, we were, so they do like kind of and that's all blind data a little bit. We were about 4th place out of 12 on the aggregate. In 2020, we actually moved up to 1st place. We don't at this point because they don't wrap their fiscal year until November, so we don't know where we finished out of now the 14 group, but we were 1st place last year out of the 12 aggregate.
So what's the dollar amount that's being considered for MWBE spend? Is it 40 million, 50 million? I mean, in other words, out of our budget, what is it that is
approximately
35-ish. 35 million.
Yeah.
And that's this year, right? What was it in the years before that? Like, because I know it went down.
So we had the 41.95 million from the last fiscal year.
Right. So it went down 6 million.
About 10, so 6 to 10.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of that's derivative of construction.
So one of the things that I've asked, and hopefully you guys are doing, the state's exclusion and exemption, that we don't go down just because they say we can't.
Yeah, so certain categories, for instance, we're getting into categories that we haven't had that utilization before that necessarily may be excluded or exempt, but we're actually finding those opportunities as we can get those opportunities.
What would be an example of that?
So the newest one is IT hardware. That we actually, IT hardware and implementation services, those are avenues that are brand new for us that we're actually getting into. That we haven't previously had that utilization.
So just also for a little bit of clarity, we, to Bishop's point, we actually put some parameters around the team in terms of if we're going to look at the percentage, if we were going to lower that has come through Joshua and myself. We want to make sure that we deal with other entities, the appropriate measures, and we wanted to again not take advantage of set aside. We wanted to hold ourselves accountable, try to do as much as we possibly can, again being intentional. So we did put some earlier parameters around that.
Yeah, I mean, I think embedding MWBE within the purchasing department has been a game changer, rather than kind of having it sit outside. Because I've spoken to the leadership council group about, this isn't about numbers. This is about making sure that ECMC plays a part in revitalizing our community. And that's what this is about. This isn't about meeting some state goal. And we are a community organization, and we need to support the community and make sure that all the ships rise here. So we've talked about that, but Diane and Nick and others, mostly Diane, but and her team are having daily conversations with people in the middle management, which is really where the rubber hits the road on some of the purchasing decisions. So that's been, to me, that's been the game changer in this, is really having MWE embedded in purchasing, and that kind of having it separate.
So there's actually product and not just construction work.
Right, and there's conversation.
That's important.
And there's conversations going on. So the purchasing department's actually having a conversation with the manager saying, hey, look at this vendor. Yeah. Have a conversation with this vendor.
And that's really important, Tom, because that's where the bottleneck is. That middle management there is where those decisions that are being made by those managers to purchase, if we don't require them, then basically it's the good old boys network, and they just
nothing changes. And sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes it's just, this goes for any sort of initiative, whether it be MWBE or just lowering our costs. It's the comfortability, right? So I'm managing 1,000 things. I'm trying to take care of patients, and I got to change the vendor. I got to change the vendor that's actually giving me good service. Right. So because either they, we're having MWE spend, or they have a lower cost. So that's really what the purchasing department has, that conversation. And we obviously want to make sure that the vendors can respond to our managers. But sometimes they got so much going on that they need that push from the purchasing department to kind of change.
And there's just
I'd also say
opportunity. Oh, I'm sorry, Christian.
Oh, I was just going to add on to what Tom said. I would also say it's making sure that the MWBEs that are responsible vendors in the community are reachable, and that they're out front so that they are able to participate as well, so that those managers understand that they're available and they're able to provide the service or the products that they are that they need.
And just lastly on that, there's a lot of opportunity. Our spend for supplies and purchase services for a year is roughly 170 million. Now, a lot of that is excluded because of specialty type stuff that we have to buy, but there's still opportunity to grow.
Absolutely. Well, it's certainly going in the right direction, and I can see the benefit of that based on where it used to be. It used to be just construction, but now there's other product involved, and that's important because there are certainly more qualified MWBEs out there now than there were a few years ago. And we just got to make sure that we're out to them.
And so, not to pile on, I just reiterate what Tom said. I think putting in purchasing with all the RFPs and everything to do, it sets the tone early in the beginning.
Put in the right direction.
We were, I think 3 or 4 years ago, before we were doing this, we were committed to it, but it was after the fact something been awarded. Now we're able to have those conversations, and to Diane and John and Nick and Serena's credit, they're having those discussions real time up front, and the expectation is different. I think that's why you're seeing it.
And that's true, because years ago, a construction company was asked for a waiver because they couldn't find anybody.
Correct.
And now they can't do that anymore because they're certainly
they got to show up with them.
Exactly. Yep.
So it's good. It's heading in the right direction.
Okay.
How do we recruit MWBEs and MBEs?
Who is this?
Gino.
This is Gino.
Hi, Gino.
Hi. How do we recruit or identify or keep a list of? How do we do that?
So we are definitely launched a new multi-pronged effort on outreach so far as that's kind of concerned. So as Cindy mentioned, we did have the MWB Diversity Network Fair to offer and make people aware of those business support services. Again, bringing the right people into the room, whether it's being the City of Buffalo, eProly Forever, or our partners at SBDC at Upstate. So, and what we're doing at this point is actually doing outreach to New York State's platform for MWBEs on things like your certificates expiring, making sure they're aware of RFPs that are going on. We actually do conference calls because I work with Serena Rolfe, our Director of Procurement Compliance, our RFP IFP coordinator, Chelsea, and really offering those conference calls to people and an opportunity to ask questions on how to submit documents, and really providing, here's how to get help with the state, here's how all these different support services you can kind of get, and here's how to, be if you want to be a prime. If you don't want to be a prime, actually we have a new function that we have where they can actually indicate they're interested in being a subcontractor, which again helps people build those utilization plans to get them into the actual conversation so far as that's concerned too. So, and as a result of a lot of it, again, as mentioned, we do have that award coming up on December 15th. And actually we will be on panelists for the MWB Forum 2 for Journeys to Success, actually with best practices, along with, again, all those outreach efforts we're doing and how we're leveraging that technology too. So
great. Good job.
Yeah.
Anything else before we move on? Questions?
No. So this is, we work with the state. Nick has done a great job in making sure that we're matching federal tax ID numbers, and so we can track better and easier, and so we can give more data for BPI. We've been working with BPI to help them establish more of a database of who those suppliers are, because every supplier could go by the name of the supplier or just the name of the supplier. So it gets very complicated on how to make sure that we're tracking this. And so Nick has been able to do a lot of formulas and a lot of data analytics to make sure that we're meshing the best that we can and that we can outreach the best that we can. The state, it's about 17 months to get certified. And so he also has great relations with the state, so does Serena, to help push some of those through for some of the vendors who are trying to get certified also. So, kudos to Nick and Serena for a great job, but it doesn't end here, right? So it's $1 million for BPI, and it's 9 million, but there's more out there, and we know that there's more out there. And so as we continue to work with the middle managers and the upper management, and Andy and John, we meet with every single month to go over where we are. People can bring this vendor. So we're always looking for those ideas and outreaches wherever we can. And to the diversity network that we did in October, it was a wonderful program. We had people from the city of Buffalo. The vendors all loved it. They're all coming back, and we already have a lot of ideas for next year of how we can make it bigger and better. Because that's truly, you know, vendors that we wouldn't normally deal with. The collard greens were like to this high, and he sold out on all of those. And so just wherever we can help that's what we should be doing. And I think we're headed in the right direction, but not to stop.
Have the issues with the supply chain across the country been in any way more or less impacted by has the MWBE community been impacted more or less or the same by what we're seeing across the supply chain?
I think it depends on what category you're in. I would definitely say things that might be sitting on boats such as IT equipment, more so than, you know, the cleaning supply, J&J, who just got certified with the state, not as much. But we are definitely monitoring that every single day, the supply chain, you know, the ships, the boats, the time on a daily basis.
Good luck on that.
I have a quick question.
Certification happening, or is it just statewide now?
I'm sorry, what?
Is there local certification happening for MWBEs, or is it just statewide?
It's a statewide. It's for New York State.
Okay, any other questions
Anything
before
else?
we move on?
So thank you for letting us come and share our excitement.
I was just going to add, great work. Yeah, I was just going to add on behalf of us. Diane's been one of our unsung heroes behind the scenes. She was able to get the early stages of COVID. We needed ventilators to get ventilators that came out of a foreign country. We needed masks. Her and her team worked together to do that. When we had the fire, they mobilized and had equipment back in within inside of a week. So we appreciate you and appreciate the team for all the work. And
thank you.
Again, just one of those people behind the scenes that gets it done and makes these things tick.
Hey, can you imagine how easy your job would have been if the fire suppression worked? You know
what?
I'm just saying.
I gotta say the second time was easier. I don't want to do a third. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Dr. Quattrochi.
All right, I think we have.
We went to the resolution.
That's okay. I think we have two resolutions first.
Okay, resolution first.
Yes.
John, on the robotic surgical system, which, and Dr. Murray, you may want to comment on this because I thought your comments of the executive committee were very interesting about where this piece of equipment puts us. But sure, John, if you would please.
Yes. So just real quick, you know, as part of our planning for 2022, management's really evaluated and would really like to move forward affecting an acquisition of a robotic surgical piece of equipment. And the resolution itself, because we had originally anticipated those dollars coming from 2022 capital budget that was approved as part of the package of operating and capital. As we looked at and evaluated options for acquiring the piece of equipment, the more favorable terms came through a lease transaction. So what the resolution is requesting that we did bring through Finance Committee is to essentially reclassify 2022 capital dollars, the amount of around 2.5 million, to the operating plan, if you will, in order to make sure we get the most favorable cash flow terms available for us under that transaction. But before I ask Mike to comment from a Finance Committee perspective, I'll just ask Andy to comment on the need and the benefits.
Yeah, and I'll also refer to Dr. Murray as well. But over, I think, the last several years, we've been very fortunate to recruit, I think, some very high qualified physicians and develop some service line, like at the RACI service line with Dr. Huron Perry and Dr. Barker, who just joined us, along with Dr. Jordan Fry, breast reconstruction physician. Obviously, with some of our transgender surgery, Dr. Lori, and then also recruiting of Western New York urology here over the last 3 years. The drumbeat for Da Vinci came louder. And obviously, as a quaternary and tertiary hospital, we are we're the only hospital that doesn't have it in this area, and actually probably one of the few hospitals in the country that doesn't have it. So this is technology that we need to kind of start growing and moving in that direction, and excited for the opportunity to do it. Dr. Murray, I don't know about that anymore.
I'm not sure there's anything I can add, but I agree completely with everything that Andy has said. And to me, it's kind of like, when we had the birth of laparoscopic surgery, it was new, was a novel technique, but now it's standard. Most surgery is done that way. This is not falling into the same category, and particularly if you want to recruit surgeons of talent, you're going to have this equipment.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. So,
John, just to repeat what John, that's already been covered, that the finance committee did meet with the management team, and we unanimously support a motion to approve.
So Mike's made a motion, Jeffrey, you second? Someone second? Second. Chris, motion's been made and seconded. We're just buying one? Yes.
How many do we need?
Start with
one. We only need one.
Start with one. Start with one.
I really thought we were buying two. No.
Well, it's really major.
Trust me, I would imagine that the service would want me to buy two too.
Do we have enough doctors proficient in it?
Yeah, they'll have to go to training, and but most of the newer doctors all are trained on it. The medical schools are using this in their curriculum. So all of the doctors that we have now, like with bariatrics, Jordan, all of them trained.
Transplant.
Yeah. And transplant.
I couldn't share only one was discussed.
Motion was made and seconded. Is there any further conversation?
Andy, I'm just wondering, is this a unit that can go from OR to OR, or does this need to be installed within an OR?
We don't really want to move it to OR to OR. We're going to probably look to have it in one place. Technically it could move, but it's 600 pounds, and we would want to have not move it as much as possible. It is movable, but we don't want to do it very often.
Gotcha. Thanks, Andy.
Andy, Jim Lewicki here. Was this something that went through value analysis and through the competitive process?
Yeah. Well, actually, what we were able to do was, with our relationship with Kaleida, leverage that as a tripartite deal, and was one reason why we got some favorable pricing. So the benefit of the system helped us.
So they bought two.
And the surgeons.
Yes.
And the surgeons. We also went through a process with the surgeons.
Any other questions, Chris?
Is Intuitive the only maker of this type of?
Yeah, Intuitive is the main maker of this type of technology. What we're seeing in the medical schools.
Okay, motion been made, seconded. Any further conversation before we come to a vote? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
And the contrary? That motion carries. Thank you. Cummings, are you with us?
No, unfortunately, his clinical activities preclude him to be here. He sends his regrets and asks about it.
Let me react from being shocked. Dr. Murray.
The next resolution refers to, actually, we had the annual meeting of the medical staff on November 10th. And during that meeting, there were approved 5 amendments to the medical dental staff bylaws. I think they were provided to everybody in advance. I won't go into in detail. This is not a major revision. It's a very minor revision. And it was precipitated for 2 reasons. The first was the change in our peer review process, our physician peer review process, with the creation of a new entity called the Physician Leadership Council, which is a group of senior physicians that reviews, serious quality of care or behavioral issues. And it's kind of interposed. Formerly, I had to bring everything to the medical executive committee, which is a cumbersome and complex process. This actually gives me an intermediate group of peers who can intervene with physicians. And we find it's a more collegial and educational process and a less punitive one. But obviously, we had to change the bylaws to reflect the role of that committee. The other thing actually was the vaccine mandate. It just so happened that our bylaws were very prescriptive and only required 3 specific vaccines: measles, varicella, and rubella. So we had to expand that with the general term, looking to the future, any other vaccine, are required by federal or New York state law. So these are relatively minor changes in the credentialing and peer review sections.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. So on the first resolution, Dr. Murray's made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further conversation, questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That motion carries. On the meeting minutes from the MedDent staff, Dr. Murray.
Yeah, what you were provided with was the minutes of the November 4th Credentials Committee meeting. Nothing of major significance. We had 10 resignations, none of them really of major clinical significance. 11 initial appointments, of which 6 were physicians and 5 allied health professionals. Interestingly, 5 of the 6 physicians were hospitalists. And this reflects our increased need because of the volume we're seeing, particularly on the medical surgical side. And there were 43 reappointments. I also want to mention that in October, we did have a visit from IPRO, who do the annual compliance for the duty hour requirements for graduate medical education residents who are at ECMC. We have received their official report, and I'm glad to report there were no citations.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Murray. The motion, is there a second?
Second.
Bishop Badger, any further conversation, discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I have one final thing, and this actually is from me, not from Dr. Cummings. Chiefs of service at ECMC are appointed by the board on my recommendation as Chief Medical Officer. I'm requesting today that the board appoint Dr. Yaron Perry, who was mentioned earlier, as our Chief of Thoracic Surgery. Dr. Perry is the Division Chief of Thoracic Surgery at the University of Buffalo. He's certified in both general and thoracic surgery and specializes in the surgical care of thoracic malignancies, including the treatment of lung and esophagus. This is an important part of the development of Great Lakes cancer care, and it actually represents the transition of the thoracic surgery service from the Roswell Park group back, kind of in-house. We are grateful to Roswell Park, who stepped in our time of need because it was very essential for the Level 1 Trauma Center. They did so on the understanding that we were going to rebuild our own, basically competitive. So I do thank them for doing that in that spirit. And my recommendation is for Dr. Perry to be appointed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made by Dr. Murray. Is there a second?
Second, Mike Hofford.
Second, Sharon Hansen. Sorry, I'm back. Any further conversation? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Amen.
No further resolutions.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. Dr. Quattrochi, let me contribute this report, but I'm also first congratulating him again. Dr. Quattrochi was awarded the School of Management's highest award last week for his work at the hub. And so, Tom, congratulations. I think your speech is still being reread.
We let Dr. Kane speak in everything for the hub. He did a wonderful job. He really did. He did a mission. So I want to give obviously an update on COVID and then give an update on the operations, which are very taxed right now. These are the total number of COVID patients we've served to date. Just to give you a sense of the length of stay, it has gone down slightly, but because we have a lot of patients who are kind of stuck in the house, if you will, we can't go to other settings. Our length of stay overall is way up, which you'll see in a little bit. We currently have 58 COVID patients in-house. That represents about a 50% increase since Friday. Wow. So it's, again, we're starting to see a lot of COVID spread in the community, and we have 10 of those patients vented, which again is a newer dynamic that people are actually being vented.
Tom, how many ventilators do we have?
What's our total number?
The total right offhand, we had 70. We used to have like 50, and we ordered 20 million. So it's Diane.
So our census continues to be really, really high. We have 551 patients at house. It's down about 5:35 this afternoon due to the great work of our discharge planners. But our left without being seen in the emergency department yesterday was 21%. We've been seeing that on weekends, but not during the week, which just shows you how backed up patients are. We have, again, I talked about 58 COVID patients. We had 39 last Friday. And last year at this time, we had 26. And we maxed out during this season, if you will, at 4th of January at 75. So let's hope this is an early spike and not the start of a bigger wave. But we really are, I've never seen it worse as far as the flow of patients through the building, because we have a staffing shortage in the community. So we have approximately 50 ALC, alternative level of care patients, who are really need to go to a nursing home or some other congregate setting, or behavioral health patients or developmentally disabled individuals that we can't place in the community. We have a tremendous amount of need coming into our ER, regardless of COVID, and now we have more COVID. So it is really taxing the system. It's very concerning that we're seeing 1 in 5 patients walk into the ER, feel sick enough that they need to come to the ER, and then have to walk out. So we did communicate some more to the community that they really need to, if they see mild symptoms, get to their primary care physicians, get to an urgent care center if they can. But it's really a crisis for us. And a little bit of that, in addition to the community, has to do with staffing. So this is just the numbers regarding the vaccine mandate. We had about 42 people terminated in the first round. 147 on religious exemption. As you know, that's the court sided with the state. So those individuals have been notified that they are going to be terminated December 4th. We just couldn't react quick enough, and we can't decant the building, if you will, of patients. We need staff, so we along with our other institutions, both the Catholics and Colada, have notified the individuals before the state date, but really need until December 4th to have them come off the schedule. We've hired Joe and his team and nursing have done an unbelievable job hiring. Hired 34 individuals, 86 of whom have been RNs, 13 LPNs, and 18 CNAs in Terraceview. So they've really done great work. And we have another class coming here in January. So again, they continue to do great work despite some of the wage inflation that's going on in the community.
John, do we anticipate losing all 147?
I don't know. I mean, based on what happened before, Bishop, I would tell you maybe 50% might be the number. Others in the team have said they think it might be as high as 70 or 80%. They won't get the vaccine, but if you were to ask me right now, I would say about 50% of those individuals would get vaccinated. So we'll see. Just a couple of more awards. Karen Zemansky received the New York Organization Nurse Executive Leadership Award. Congratulations to Karen. And Dr. Kaler received the CTSI Clinical Research Achievement Award. Congratulations to Karen and Dr. Kaler. We had a mock survey for Joint Commission, so we had a full 3-day survey. An organization that came in and looked at us. Really, we wanted them to be super critical of us. Again, the surveyors, so the most important thing for me to hear is the surveyor saying, I would come to this hospital, right? That's probably the most, biggest form of flattery we could have from a surveyor because of the safety, but we do have some issues that we have to fix and nothing we didn't expect. But I think around some of the environmental services in those areas, we need to do some of the things that Joint Commission would kind of quote cite us for. So I don't know if Andy or Dr. Murray have any other comments, or Karen's on the line has any other thoughts of the surveyor Charlene. Any other thoughts from the team?
No, I think you summed it up. I mean, obviously some of it reflects the fact that the hospital is stressed and we're, kind of There's the usual kind of a couple of documentation things. There's some improvements we can make to our on our sterilization process because they've kind of tightened up on the regulations there, but nothing I think that we don't feel we can get in shape. You know, one of the things is we're not sure when they're coming. They're supposed to come in the summer, but apparently they're way behind, and so. We do expect it to be done next year, but not exactly sure when.
Okay. All right, thank you, Dr. If I could we could just remind folks to put their phones on mute if you're online. We're just getting a little background noise here. The SNUG program, our program against gun violence, has some really good news lately. We got a $406,000 grant from the Department of Labor and a $449,000 grant from the Department of Criminal Justice Services. So we're very excited about this program, and it's really they've been doing really, really good work. Just again, a reminder to folks can put their phones on mute. That would be great. Or maybe Adrian might have to mute. ECMC and IHA transformation program. I don't know who wanted some.
Yeah, I'll take this. We've been working with IHA actually last year to try to build our relationship and look at transitions of care. We've moved to work with them to they provided some seed money for us to be able to try to reduce avoidable readmissions to the hospital, work on social determinants of health, smoking cessation, and also to leverage some of our mental health services, especially on an outpatient standpoint for their IH members. So, and it was important for them to be able to have an access point for a lot of their IH members. So we have kind of an easy button push around that. It's been Lucy, Sheila Rossi, and the Actuarial group have done a pretty good job of working coincide with IHA.
Okay, thank you, Eddie. We also had a program with Univera around quality, and we achieved every single point for our Senate program. Recently, Leapfrog hasn't been really publicized through the pandemic. I think it's kind of been put on the back burner of other issues, obviously. But we did get a C score this past time around, which we were obviously not too pleased with. There was kind of a surprise, if you will, that they changed the scoring system from 7 indicators to 12 and re-weighted them. And my view is that while we want to make sure each of those quality areas, and we're going to see some in a sec, that we continue to improve, but the measures in which they weighted and how they did it severely disadvantaged safety net hospitals. I've already spoken to the head of the safety net organization, AEH, to talk to him about that. So we're going to do a little recognizance on that. But, I think at the end of the day, I've talked to the executive committee. At the end of the day, we want to change our quality scores, and how they end up measuring them, I think we can't control. So we're going to have to continue to advocate through our associations in this regard for safety net hospitals and continue to improve our scores. Along those lines, here are our scores. We have been doing very well in some different areas, such as Claudia and CLABSI. However, we do have one area, which is C. diff, which I'm going to have Donna just talk a little bit about what we're doing in this area, Donna Jones, and how we're working to improve it. So Donna, go ahead.
Hi, so our efforts remain robust, obviously with all of these, but in particular, as Tom mentioned, C. diff. So our efforts include wanting to make sure that we are have an interdisciplinary approach, ensuring that everyone has a seat at the table to chime in, strategize, kind of work through our opportunities for improvement, including our medical dental staff, nursing, our coding department, as well as quality and patient safety and infection prevention. So we are exploring implementing a nurse-driven protocol for C. diff that will give us an opportunity to test earlier and not having to necessarily wait for a physician order. Obviously, that will be based on how the patient presents to us clinically. And also, we're wanting to make sure we are doing a drill down on all of the data, because we want to make sure that we are identifying patients who come in through our emergency room who have community onset C. difficile versus hospital onset. So again, a lot of efforts are being put forth to identify those gaps. So we certainly hope that we will see some improvement in the very near future.
And just to kind of summarize what Donna is saying, you don't necessarily test everybody that comes to the ER for C. diff. So some of this is documentation on our part and trying to identify people earlier, and somebody that came in with it versus acquiring it here because they had too many antibiotics or something. So but that's an outlier for us right now in our quality scores. I went the wrong way. There we go. Patient experience scores, again, continue our efforts kind of zone by zone, if you will, for patient experience, but it's kind of hard to have patient experience scores when people are waiting for 26 hours or more in the ER, and it becomes very, very difficult. But having said all that, we're continuing to go unit by unit and make sure that people are aware of what their scores are and how we can improve. Culture perspective, we did recognize a couple individuals this month, and you can see Tim and Adrienne are just really, really great employees, both in the OR and the emergency department, and are very, very dedicated. Adrienne says it only took me 13 years to get this award, so she was great. In the middle of a very, very elevated ER, she just had a great attitude. We also celebrated Radiological Technology Week. We obviously continue to honor our veterans. We have a whole program here to honor our veterans, building upon that. Native American Heritage Month, we also celebrated, as well as Corporate Compliance and Ethics Week. John mentioned the award that we got for the hub. We also received the Buffalo Niagara Business Ethics Award for a large group, which was a nice award to receive based on and a bunch of business leaders make the choice on this award based on our commitment to our mission and what we do for our community. And then these are some of the efforts we're doing for our employees to continue to thank them for all that they're doing. Jeffrey, I know, sent out an email for those of you who are able to join us to say hello on Thanksgiving. We also have a holiday luncheon. We'll get information out to you on that, as well as we're doing a gift distribution as we always do. And foundations continuing with their annual fund campaign. If you haven't, Sue hasn't bugged you yet. And we have our ECMC clothing sale, which continues to do very, very well. Operationally, again, kudos to the whole team here and discharge planning. They do 7 days a week, daily bed huddles, twice a day during the week, once on weekends. And those are very, very important as we continue to try to be creative on how we can move people through our system. We've also increased the frequency of our COVID task force meetings because obviously we're seeing a high number of COVID patients. Hospital windows are near completion. That'll be great for everyone because we need the beds. And Jim's doing a great job. Weather's been holding out, so we may be done by the January 1. That's our goal, if the weather holds out. And then finally, digital health solution. We gave this presentation at the retreat. We're launching that initiative and actually implementing it, so we'll keep you updated on that. Here are our statistics again. They're very similar to what we've been talking about. We're not able to get people through the building, so our discharges have been down. And also, you can see our length of stay is up 3 days. That's obviously from a financial perspective, not good. And since we're doing less surgeries, our case mix is down a little bit. Obviously, we're continuing to do more outpatient, and we've stopped elective inpatient. And there's been some gray area cases because, as we say, no surgery is really elective. Nobody wants to get their knee done. But for those cases we can't wait on, we are trying to do that. You'll see our emergency room visits down by 498. In the month of October, we had almost 1,000 left without being seen for the month of October versus 100 the year before. So if we had those 900 cases, obviously we would be up in the ER, not down. So it's not for lack of being busy. And then you can see our admissions have gone up to the EP, obviously reflecting the sicker patient population. So, and outpatients are down a little bit, obviously because of reduced testing.
Tom, in regards to the ER, I mean, we just expanded the size of our ER, and I just find that an astronomical number. You know, in some areas, medical technology just seems wonderful, and then it seems like in other areas of technology, like scheduling, you know, medicine is behind. For example, I'm thinking of maybe an application. If you need to get into the ER, what the wait time is, so that you may want to go someplace, or you may want your place held in line or something to that effect. But 21% of the people walking out is that's unconscionable. I'm sorry, it just is.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. But there's just the issues is really the inability to discharge patients. So the 50 people that are stuck in our building are, 2 units coupled with the COVID patients who are very, very sick. And it's really just a function of not having enough beds and not enough places to discharge patients into the community. So we're not able to move people through the organization because we can't safely discharge them. So that's where the bottlenecks come in. If we didn't have our new ER, we'd really be in trouble. This is not a dynamic, an ECMC dynamic. This is going on all over the community and frankly, the country. And it's really the thing that's the biggest Achilles heel in this whole thing is the other settings outside of ECMC where we're not able to discharge patients to. That's really the biggest issue for us. So I talk about the 50 ALC patients. Those are 50 people who have been identified. The other folks are staying an extra 3 days. So they're blocking up the hospital even more. So it kind of is, and obviously we have, just a reminder to put your phones on mute, please. We also have technology that we offer our patients, and many patients just won't avail themselves of it and walk out. So it's a difficult issue, Mike. Don't disagree with you, but there's not an easy solution, unfortunately, to it.
If there were a solution, Tom, I know you would have it.
I was going to add to piggyback with Tom that 50 ALCs, over 12 of them are developmentally disabled individuals who have been with us probably in excess of anywhere from 100 to 200 days that have to go to a specialized congregate area. And because of the limited staffing there, we can't get them out of the building. And so that dynamic is, obviously at a safety net hospital, we get a lot of people, that maybe some of the other suburban hospitals wouldn't get because we do have behavioral health and other resources to at least provide some level of service.
Yeah, the state just allocated a lot of money towards Office of Developmentally Disabled Individuals, OPWDD as it's called, and so they just for staffing, frankly. So hopefully they don't take too many of our staff, but they did just get a huge allocation. That's not going to do anything instantly for us, but gives us at least some light at the end of the tunnel here.
So let me ask you this: is this a long-term problem, or do you see light at the end of the tunnel? In other words,
well, the only thing I don't know. The only thing that encourages us is the number of people we've been able to hire. So I think the vaccine mandate, if you think about it, took 130 people just in our organization-ish, maybe more, out of the workforce, right? And so if you multiply that times all the other organizations in the country, I just saw statistics. I usually remember numbers, but I can't remember how many people have actually left the workforce in healthcare. But it's a lot. So
that's what I'm saying. So
it's got to get replenished. So I think for the next at least probably, I don't know, 7-8 months minimally, we're going to have this issue. The question is, to your point, Bishop, will COVID numbers go down, right? So that helps, right? Will some of these other places be able to hire more because of, there'll be wage inflation? I think the state and federal government have a big hand to play in reimbursement. And so everybody's, beating that drum right now. You can't expect these nursing homes to pay what they need to pay if they're not reimbursed properly. So, this is our opportunity to kind of right the wrongs of Medicaid and how it's disadvantaged organizations like us, our communities we serve, and the people who serve them.
If we're stretched already and we haven't really, the numbers are going up, but we haven't seen a surge. If you have a surge, I mean, there's a potential the whole system could collapse.
Right.
I mean, it's crazy.
I know, I agree with
you. In the month of September, throughout the United States, 538,000
there's a number of
healthcare workers left the industry. And the burnout and that people are feeling, because just like our ER, you talk to colleagues throughout the country, the same way, people are making life-changing choices because of this, which further taxes the system. And it's a very real phenomenon that's happening.
Well, that's why I asked, is this a short-term or a long-term problem?
Yeah, I think
before the pandemic, the estimate for New York State for nurses needed was 35,000. And I just heard that at a healthcare association board meeting, one of the CEOs quoted that number. So, you know, that's, you know, a lot of people. So we've got, you know, I think the state is looking at how it can support the institutions that supply nurses. Karen's developed a program where she's going to actually have some nurses come and do a little bit of apprentice kind of programs with us and help, and then hopefully stay. So we're pulling all the levers, but it's going to be a struggle for a while. And then I worry financially because of wage inflation. You know, how it's not just us, how all these organizations, including these nursing homes, are going to be able to turn about. So I'm sorry, Chris.
No, I just, and I don't know if we have this statistic, but out of the 58 COVID cases that we currently have in the hospital, do we know what percentage were vaccinated?
I think it's there's about somewhere around 15 patients who are vaccinated. When you look at them, there are a couple who are seriously ill. There are some who are still here because they've never, you know, they're still testing positively, even though they're clinically better. And those are among the people we can't discharge because people won't take them because even though they're not contagious, they're still positive. There's some people who are admitted. We test everybody who comes into the hospital, so they may be admitted with another problem. When we test them, and they test positive. You know, they're not necessarily sick, but some are, and it's particularly people. Even I don't think we have anybody who admitted who's had a booster at this point. Some of the people are people who are at high risk, either because they're immune compromised, like transplants, or they have very serious comorbidities, bad heart disease, bad lung disease, things like that. So those are the people who, despite the fact they're fully vaccinated, are still vulnerable.
That's about, what, 25%?
Yeah. So remember, there's twice as many vaccinated people out in the community as there are unvaccinated at this time.
Thanks, Dr. Maria. I want to move on quickly and just make two comments before I get a text message from Tony Colucci. The first is with regard to leapfrog. The ELT shared with me the information that we had our rating reduced from to a C and spent an inordinate amount of time with Donna Jones and Donna Brown, Dr. Cloud, Dr. Murray, obviously, Tom and Indy. And the overriding, or my overriding sentiment is the world in which I live, you go from A to C, and that's failure. And I've been around here too long to know that we are failing. In fact, quite the contrary. You've heard me say very emphatically that I think we do a spectacular job. So we get back to the assessment and the metrics that Leapfrog is using to comment about the care that we give. And I have become, over the past 72 hours, more convinced that it is as much a game of gotcha by Leapfrog and the changing of the numbers and the weights given to some of the metrics that they use that is not reflective of the care that is given here. So this is a conversation we're going to continue to have up to and including the elimination of Leapfrog as an evaluation tool for CMS and to switch to something else that is less speculative and is less, as I say, we're not playing gotcha here. We're trying to save people's lives. And if the reflection of what we value is subject to literally, it appears, the whim of with all due respect to our analysis on staff, the analysts who determine how these numbers are to be gauged, then that's not good enough. So we're going to have a continuing conversation about where we are in that process. And the one question that I had asked of ELT, and I'm convinced is got an accurate and truthful answer, is that our care and the effort and the outcomes that we have relative to the work we put in is still at the highest level that we could possibly have. So you have to ask the question, how did we end up with a C? And if the answer comes back, which it appears to be, that some guy just flipped the numbers, that's just not acceptable. So we're going to continue to have this conversation. Hold on, we're going to continue to have this conversation, and if we need to make that change, we will make it. Am I overstating it? And I know Tony's going to start saying, remember you're on public.
I think at the end of the day, continual improvement is what we want. And when we get surprised, rather than a heads up or a period of time where we can actually make changes, it does question whether it's a game of I got you. Yep. So they can show that everybody lowered and then they did things to get everybody to go up, right? So they changed the rules, so to speak.
So I raise it only in the context of this will be a continuing conversation, at this level, at the board level. Once we figure out, we'll get some clarity around what some of those numbers are. The other thing is with regard to COVID and what we're about to go through. We spent a lot of time over the past 72 hours with the county executive, and if you read his comments, he has been very prescriptive about what the next steps are relative to the numbers. And I for one fully support what he's doing, and I know Tom and our colleagues reluctantly understand what we're up against. So this is, Bishop, to your point, at least in the short term, not over, and we'll see what happens in the next couple of days and a week from Thanksgiving and see what happens. But we need to be on full standby, as we are already, as to what those numbers could be. It is very serious. I think Mark has taken a remarkably strong and legitimate stand in trying to stem this, and it needs our support. This is not something that has been done lightly, nor has it been done without a great deal of thought based on the science. And the science is such that it is very serious. So I would recommend that if you didn't read his full statement about what the next steps are going to have to be should the numbers not go down, you need to do so and be prepared. Am I accurate?
Yep.
My phone hasn't gone off yet, so I haven't said anything untoward.
Tony has to stop.
Okay. I'll try to get through this quickly. I know we're up against time, and Tom has done a great job already talking about the statistics, but as you anticipate, and as we really anticipated when you look at the statistics here, and our operational results really been impacted by all of those market drivers that we're seeing outside of our four walls even. The strike down the street at Mercy, the vaccine mandates during the month of October that really kicked in at the end of September, the high census, the inability to discharge patients, staffing issues, both inside and out. It really does have an impact, and you can see it in the statistics that Tom referenced, specifically around the levers that we had to pull, right? The inpatient surgeries, the outpatient pullback on clinic visits. Terrace View had to shut down units to accommodate staffing challenges, as well as positive COVID cases there. But salary costs, premium pay, bonuses to try to retain staff, all of those things have impacts into our financial performance. Excuse me. And so on the next slide, you can see in our dashboard, the only thing I'll highlight here is it is green at the top, and I'll get into that in a minute, because it is impacted by some other things that other than operations, true operations. But the FTEs, I'll mention, that's really the only thing that we haven't talked about specifically, although Tom referenced the amount of hires that we've had. But you can see here it's green. We're at 3448. That's our lowest number thus far in terms of total FTEs, not by design, of course, and trying to hire as many people as possible. That number for the last pay period, even after October, that we have reported FTEs for, is actually lower than that, about 3365. But to the credit that Tom had spoken about earlier with Joe and his team, and Karen and her team, really trying to hire as many as possible. 234 since August. We'll start to see this tick up. Of course, with the religious exemptions notwithstanding, but we would, continue to see this start to tick up. Next slide. So where does that put us? We expanded the presentation of the financial performance a bit to include a couple different lines now, similar to how we had this portrayed last year. And you can see that before a pension adjustment, which I'll talk about in a minute, from operations, with all of these factors impacting October, we lost about $9.7 million. We had budgeted a loss of about 3.2. So most, not all of that, is really driven by those factors that we saw, that we talked about. Piece of good news on the pension side is that during the month we've received the final actuarial adjustment, an actuarial report from the New York State Retirement System. That's a positive adjustment for us. It's non-cash, but similar to last year, we did record it in October. Last year was a big negative. This year is a positive, although not as big, really driven from the timing of the report, interest rate changes, market performance. So we did record that this month, and that brought us positive 8.9 million, bringing our overall performance just for the month to about $846,000 loss. Next slide. So when we pull that forward into the year to date, before our pension adjustment, as well as the PPP loan forgiveness that we've spoken about previously, we were well behind plan. Of course, that's $44 million loss, 23 million in budget. And that was really driven, of course, as we talked about, from the first 2 months of the year in the inpatient shutdown, as well as now October, really the tail end of September into October. But after these adjustments, we're actually right on target from a bottom line perspective. You look at our overall income from operations at 23.3 million. Let me pause there to see if there are any questions on that before I just quickly hit the COVID updates. Okay. So just continuing to track COVID costs, we're tracking total year to date, about $113 million of COVID impact in cost and lost revenue this year, just through, that's through the whole pandemic. This year alone is roughly 16 million in total. And that really doesn't include some of the lost revenue just from the last month, because we were shut down for a lot of different reasons, not necessarily just for COVID. Next slide. So I'll end with an update. That's a piece of good news. I've mentioned in prior meetings that we did apply for phase 4 provider relief. That's a $17 billion fund that was filed about four weeks ago. A part of that application is there's 2 sections. One is just for, it's really provider specific. And then the other is for those providers who care for beneficiaries who live in rural outlying communities, so rural zip codes. We applied for that as well. We were notified today and received dollars today of about $1.2 million of additional relief just for the rural component. Again, it's not for the larger pot of money related to phase 4, but just for the rural patients that we treat.
So that was 7.5 of the 17.
Yes, yes. So, you know, a bit of good news. They disseminated all of those funds, 7.5 today, to all the providers. Payments ranged from $500 to a provider to $43 million to a provider. So there are significant recipients and beneficiaries. They did that because many of the rural providers.
That's nationally, not locally.
That's nationally. Yeah, that's nationally. Many of the rural providers were left out of previous rounds just because they didn't have as many Medicaid patients, so they didn't have as many COVID patients. So they wanted to make sure they got some funds into the hands of the rural providers.
And they signaled that they may release the remaining dollars in the next couple of weeks. So we'll see.
Yes. Yeah.
Which Wyoming and all what Wyoming County? They received
about $1 million. I think it was $1.8 million.
So this round was all about if you were taking care of individuals in rural areas. So that's our proportion was that of rural areas. Do their numbers accrue to ours? No, separate.
And the largest recipient, I think, was Olean as part of the Upper Allegheny Health System.
Anything else? Questions for John? Just a couple of notes from my perspective. I mentioned this at the last meeting and have over the years. You should all have been, well, certainly by tomorrow, I would think, you'll have received a note with regard to our annual fund. It is imperative that the board have 100% participation. Is one of those questions that are asked all the time relative to the grants that we apply for, and that is the degree to which we have board participation. A number of you have become members of the CEO Roundtable, so thank you. The others, if you would, please consider the annual fund and send it back to Sue and or Stacy as soon as you receive it. The two interesting bits of good news. To Tom's point, as of this afternoon, the foundation in about 30 hours sold $41,000 worth of merchandise. $41,000. So
holidays are coming.
I mean, it just is off the chart. So when you see Sue and Stacy, please congratulate them. And it's still going for a little degree. And it's one of those things that Ron Lacuya and AdPro and Tabula really allows us to do. And all that money goes straight to our bottom line. So those numbers are great. The two other quick things. The Jeffress sent around a note with regard to the passing of Sean Grimm, Dr. Grimm's husband. As you know, Katie has been a long time a member of our medical staff and president of the medical staff for a while and a member of this board. So to whatever degree you feel it important or necessary, Jeffrey, I think you said Katie's home address was, but the services were announced, but I think, is her home address in your note? No. If any of you are interested in sending her a note, please do so.
You send out the arrangements. You let Jeffrey know if you'd like it.
Yeah.
I sent out the arrangements.
When did you do, Jeff? Did you do that today?
Yeah. And this has been a long time struggle for Katie and the family, and I think an expression by the board would be very appropriate. And lastly, many of us will be here on Thanksgiving morning. Sue tells me at 10:30 is show up time. The entire hospital will be given Thanksgiving meals. And so it's a great opportunity for us as a board to say thank you, at least for an hour, because I don't think it'll take all that long to do that. So I hope as many of you around the table and on the internet can join us as possible. 10:30, the meals will start at 11, and we're doing it right next door.
Right. Yeah, people come down again.
And so please let Jeffrey know if you can make it, even for some portion of the time. And I think there's a second session at 5,
right,
for the for the nighttime staff. So with that, anything further on the Finance Committee, Michael?
No, other than it's very clear that what's driving the numbers. You know, we've been seeing it now for, I don't know, 14, 16 months. And so I think, again, I said it in finance that the job you and the staff, the entire building is doing to keep us afloat and not affecting quality of care is amazing. But it's affecting everywhere across the whole country. So we're all in the same battle together. So let's you and the staff.
Darby, I think Darby's still on the.
Yep, I am here.
Anything
Hello.
Audit?
Yeah, just quickly, we met on November 17th. RSM gave their audit plan for the year, and then we had a lot of great presentations. I have to tell you, I know it's all behind the scenes and not everyone gets to see it, but there's so much great work that goes in from internal audit, corporate compliance, litigation, risk management, and corporate insurance to keep ECMC, you know, risk-free to the extent that they can and just compliant with all the numerous things that we have. So it was a great job by all, and that's about it.
Thank you, Darby. Questions for Darby before we move on? Ron Bennett from Buildings and Grounds.
This is Jim Turner. I'm going to cover Mr. Bennett, and also Jen was going to cover it, but I'm going to cover it really quick for the team. We had a nice meeting today. As Tom mentioned, we're on the last drops of the windows, the 3 last drops out of the 42. That should be wrapping up by January 1, as we mentioned. A couple other quick little projects that are finishing up. The kitchen tray line will be done by early December, and also the specialty pharmacy is also wrapping up. So good projects that are wrapping up for the year. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Mike, anything further on MWB? We're good to go. Ron Chapin on QI. Okay. And Mike Hofford, patient safety.
Yes, John. The Board Quality Improvement and Patient Safety Committee meeting met on Tuesday, November 9th. We had 3 different reports, one on care management by RN Becky Del Prince, dietary services by Zachary Gidwitz, respiratory services by Amanda Roster. Also, we received an update from Donna Jones on the Quality Leadership Council and an update from Charlene Ludlow. I don't know if the 2 ladies have anything to add.
Charlene, we're good?
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Mike.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you. Unless there's anything on this agenda, I'm going to ask us to go into executive session for a brief moment. Is there a motion to do so? So moved. Motion has been made, seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you all very much. In this time of giving of thanks, let me thank you all for your continued service and support for the hospital and for the management of the hospital. And I hope to see as many of you as can be there on Thursday at 10:30. But with that, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, all.
All the best. Stay safe, everybody. Thank you.